Hello, 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 and welcome back to Let's Harp About It. My name is Winnie O. For those of you who know me, I am the founder and president of HARP, that's the Harassment and Assault Reporting Platform. And obviously, fam, we've been doing this. Typically, we're here with Dr. Andrew Singh, and also future guests will be gracing our stage. We've also had Alex Dominguez, who is also awesome, and talking to us, some more about just the criminal injustice and the criminal criminal justice reform system, and just the many systems of inefficiencies that exist therein too. Again, I will keep talking about these systems of inefficiencies. Why? Because it's important. It's important in how we re-envision, how we allow people to move from victimhood to being survivors and truly thriving in life after these incidents of abuse, whether it's harassment or assault in any form. And so I'd like to give you guys a moment. Please share, like, share, invite your friends, let them know it's really good. And my shirt today, y'all like my shirt? I'll tell you more about it later. But please take a moment, share the live. And again, if you know somebody who could benefit or be inspired by our discussion today, please also share it with them, not just on Facebook, on the text messages, on the DMs, on, what's up, my African people. We know we love us a good WhatsApp group, so please share your WhatsApp groups as well. If for those of you who are new to HARP, you can find us at www.harpnow.org or on social media platforms at harpnow.org. That's at HARPNOWORG. And that's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. So connect with us. Let us know how we could be of assistance. Also, let us know if you would like to join the tribe, if you would like to be a part of our volunteer folks who help us really run a lot of the background information, from data gathering to data analysis and data visualization, and just creating educational content, social media management, all that good stuff, impacting your community locally right where you are. Yes, that is very possible. And I want to encourage you guys to do that. I encourage you to join the work, because you know what? We got to do the work. Because like my shirt says, an easier assignment is not coming, family. Yeah, it's a Black Mermaid shirt. How you doing, Miss Mallory? Yes. And so with that, we'll get right into it. If you had a chance, I hope you were able to catch up on the latest blog on the website, www.harpnow.org, right there. Yeah. And so this week it was a feature post by the Clayton P. Carroll II. I love the way he breaks down information. Folks say they love the way I make the technical practical. I love how he makes stuff so just relevant and practical, especially on some real heavy topics. And for this week's article was titled the power of true advocacy, right? And going beyond just the perception of what allyship is, right? Because people are like, I'm an ally, but I'm like, but what does that really mean, right? For people who say they're an ally. And one of the criticisms that we've heard of allyship is this almost like this self-distancing, where it's like, oh, I am helping this marginalized group out. I am helping them, get to share their voice and get to speak up. Like right? It's this understanding, so it seems, where people are like, it doesn't directly affect me, so I am kind of not part of the problem or the solution, really, but I can help you get there. Whereas when we talk about true advocacy, right, championing advocacy, it's lending your voice and realizing you are part of, not only where you could be a part of the problem, but more importantly, realizing that you are a part of the solution. You're an integral part to solving the problem, right? Advocacy, rooted in advocare, yeah? To lend your voice to someone in need, right? As I mentioned before, it's a power, it goes back actually to, it's rooted in power struggles, right? This inequity of power, right? In judicial processes, or, in conditions that have some adjudication tied to them, some judgment, right? And so understanding that there is an imbalance of power, and advocates come in to lend their voice to those who are in need, that, power balance. And so, yeah, we're here to do that. We're here to do that. And I hope you do that for the next person as well. Yeah. Do that. Be a good human being. Be a decent human being. And so, back to what Clayton wrote. And actually, I hope to have him here. Clayton, you're welcome. Come on through, fam. Come on through, love. Yeah. And so, I love how he starts off, the piece by sharing how, he's had a lot of friends, in his life who are women, and most of them have, felt comfortable enough to tell him or share with him their experiences of, instances of harassment or assault, in various, instances. And, in this context, he started off by talking about how, we can talk about just something as really relatable as misogyny and sexism, right? And this happens, quite often, really. And whether we talk about street harassment, transit harassment, domestic abuse and domestic violence, child abuse, even like even sometimes the way law enforcement handles folks of certain genders than others, right? All these like are manifestations of deeply rooted issues and flawed ideologies in people. And he says, whether it's a stare or a catcall or a comment, or an expectation, right, or an assault, if it goes to that degree, a particular assault, he shows how, he has been a witness to women, just sharing these instances, like it's been so normalized, and how he does his part whenever possible to truly be an advocate and truly champion for men, to change that ideology, to change their thinking and how we interact, across genders, across, you know intersectional identities, so to speak, right? Because it's not just men, right? We also, right? Oh, misogyny and sexism also requires women to buy into it, to perpetuate it. That's how oppressive systems work. Oppressors require buy-in from the oppressed to perpetuate oppression, especially if those representatives from the oppressed demographics are looked at almost as like kind of like the tokenized leaders. Like they're like, these are our leaders, these are our representative, and they're like, we'll use them. And we've seen that happen time and time again. So, you cannot have sexism and misogyny without support and buy-in also from those who are being adversely affected from it. And he talks about how it's he understand. I'm going to read straight from what he says. He says, I understand that what women contend with is a culture which tells men that this is okay, sexism and misogyny, that they are contending with literally every man. They're navigating the culture of men, a culture that even good men are born of. And so the obvious fact that not all men are rapists is irrelevant in that moment when a woman is describing her experiences to me. Right? Because we often hear that, well, but not all men are horrible, not all men are bad, not all men, perpetuate these heinous crimes against women or against, folks that they deem to be, vulnerable. And we've seen that same sentiment, like when, let's say, with the Black Lives Matter, where people are like, all lives matter, blue lives matter. It's like, okay, y'all really missing the point here too. And the reality is that, this anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-whatever that, prejudice, deeply rooted prejudice is, in this case, anti-misogyny, it's an everyday, all the time thing, right? It's a constant work where, he says, it would be easy for me to say my closest friends are women, and I'm not misogynistic, but he says, but I don't do that because even though his closest friends, are women, he recognizes that that is just the way the system works. That's the way society has conditioned folks. And therefore, it requires those in positions of power and privilege, that contextual, when we talk about contextual privilege, right? It's important that those who happen to be in those elements of contextual privilege to exercise that, right? and be vigilant about challenging those flawed premises about people of different intersectionality, walks of life, in this case women. And I love also how Clayton tied it so beautiful, because when I started reading when he originally posted it, I was like, literally, like, you could switch misogyny for racism and it's literally follows the same like flow path, the same ideological flow path. And I love how he specifically does pull in the anti-racism component to it, where he says, I don't find it necessary to post videos of women being sexually, or physically assaulted for him to be inspired to talk about misogyny or to act in countering misogyny and sexism, or to prove that misogyny is real, right? Or to inspire other men to see how they can support anti-misogyny, anti-sexism work. Like, it's ridiculous. Because the reality is, oftentimes, people do navigate those flawed ideological conditioning in the subversive sense, in the subtext of daily life, where oftentimes it's actually not very evident in the way people interact with other people. Many times, like, let's say if we're talking about, psychological abuse, mental abuse and mental harassment, financial abuse, right? Like, people endure these conditions and don't even realize that that is abuse, because somebody hasn't laid a finger on them. Somebody hasn't specifically called them out of their name. Somebody hasn't physically or sexually assaulted you. So you're like, oh, I haven't been assaulted or harassed. But I'm like, you have experienced the form of abuse, and being able to validate people's experiences when they are enduring, whether it's financial abuse, psychological abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. These are really, really big deals to me, where we need to first of all, normalize the language. We need to encourage people to speak up about it, and to speak out, and be unapologetic in the way we share our stories and own our stories, to empower the next person, Yeah, right. Because and we saw that with the death of Brother George Floyd, after being murdered in the streets by the police, by law enforcement. It's almost like that was like the final straw that broke the camel's back. And people are like, all of a sudden, people are like, oh my God, I never thought about it. I never talked about it. I didn't see, like, I was hearing this so much. I try not to see color. I don't see color. I don't see gender. I'm like, family. I mean, I understand color blindness is a legit medical condition, and I will keep saying it. Like, when it's a legit medical condition, I'm like, we need to help those folks, find a better way to be able to, to appreciate color the way the rest of the population does. But when it is a mental condition where somebody chooses to intentionally unsee you, unsee your race, unsee your color, unsee your gender, or try to misgender you, these are very real issues, and you can't sit there and pretend like, oh, I just don't see it. I don't see any of it. No. Like, can you unsee, like, let's say if a person is evidently expecting with child, can you unsee that? Can you unsee that? Yeah. So, like, and seeing that trend where people are like, oh, I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't know it was this serious until this incident happened, where I was like, people have been asking for real policy changes for decades. People have been speaking out about these injustices for decades. And oftentimes we see it, and I mentioned it before, where it's like, different subgroups will hop on and off this racism roulette or prejudice, roulette bus, and they'll get a hop on and be like, oh, this is raggedy, and get off. And policies will be made, or, ordinances will be passed, new research will be conducted to help address that particular need. But hardly ever do we really then go deep into it and address the root cause of all of this, which is systemic racism, systemic oppression, right? There's systems and structures that have been built to perpetuate these false ideologies that, perpetuate, whether it's sexism, misogyny, racism, tribalism, colorism, right? It perpetuates these horrible just manifestations of the human condition. And so, I love how he says on the one hand, it's been somewhat relieving to see so many of my white circle finally speaking up about years of silence, right? I see so many of you taking heat from people in your circles. I've cackled, put those, heart-shaped emojis, thumbed up your posts, and on the other hand, some of you, regardless of intention, are still missing the mark. And I see it time and time again. People are like, I don't see color, I don't see this, I don't see gender, I just see human beings. I'm like, well, you're missing a heck of a lot of the flavor that is life, and the flavor and the true diversity that is this lived experience that we all navigate uniquely. Even people of, similar gender or similar physical expression or similar as even ethnicity. I mean, we could just start as Americans. There's so much diversity and so much flavor in what it is to be, whether, American, Nigerian, or African in general, or European. There's so much flavor in that. And we have to acknowledge that. There's value in seeing our difference, so that we can be able to allow people to live more authentically, to bring more of who they are to the decision-making tables that we happen to inhabit in our respective circles of influence. Yeah. And so, whenever I experience it, especially when I see it online, I recognize that it's easier for people to dismiss it, especially when it's like in a virtual space, where they're like, oh, I just, people are quick to shut other people down when it's online. Because, also in general, we don't like confrontation. People don't like confrontation. And Lord knows I've been there too, where I may have like tried to confront somebody, but obviously they took it the wrong way, or or they misread or misunderstood what my intent was. And for me, I'm that person who I'm like, okay, if you misread it, I'm like, and I have your contact, a way to contact you, I will pick up the phone and call you ASAPidly, because I'm like, okay, I would like to believe that you did not intend to take it like this. So let's hash it out. But again, that goes back to like, right, building real connections and relationships, and understanding that like really real change really comes out of true relational interactions, seeing the humanity in the next person and recognizing that, oh, as much as they're different from me, there's still value in that, and I can value even the differences, right? We begin to unlearn these faulty ideologies when we're able to, hey, do your research. If you don't have access to actually like, making friends with somebody of a different intersectional expression, and there's ways to research. Google it, YouTube it, Go search the hashtag on these internets, on Beyonce's good old internet. Bam. There's so much information, and obviously curate it so that you're getting good information. You don't want to be getting faulty information that dives you deeper into insanity. We don't want that, but yeah, we have to unlearn these false teachings and false indoctrinations. We have to unlearn them, whether it's in how you're raised in your family, or how you're raised religiously, or how you were brought up in your academic institutions. We have to get to the point where intentionally, at this point, we have to be intentional unlearners of, of bigotry and hatred, however that manifests. Yeah, you know. And I love how he, in the article, Clayton says your willingness to constantly, vigilantly, obsessively make other white people uncomfortable whenever and wherever possible is more impactful. You are disrupting their thoughts. You are shattering white social norms, which places peace and civility above literally everything else, except maybe money, because we all know about that capitalism, okay? And I'll also tag on necro-capitalism, which literally is that immensely extreme toxic form of capitalism that prioritizes money over life and doesn't care how many people it extinguishes along the way, as long as your net profit comes out positive. Okay. That part. Yeah. 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 Yeah, so like I hope I gave y'all enough reason to at least go back and check it out. Go read the whole article, because man, he breaks it down so well. Literally, like it's to me, I was like, it's definitely an essential read. I mean, like, the good thing with HARP articles on the blog, they usually will take you less than about 5 minutes, if you're reading straight through. And moreover, I don't want y'all to just read the articles. I really hope, for me, it's usually, I hope they're an inspiration to then begin unpacking the way we perceive society, begin unpacking the faulty teachings we may have had, myself included, as a child of many experiences, now an adult. It is important that we begin to have these moments of open discussion and normalizing having these uncomfortable conversations, so that we get to that place where we are able to truly advocate for the next person and the next child, so that they don't have to go through the same mess that we did, right? And thank you for therapy, right? Because therapy is also very important, right? It goes back to the mental health piece, making sure that we're able to help folks who have been victimized by abusers to transition into survivors, right? Real survivors who are able to reclaim their power, reclaim their narrative, own their stories, own our stories, and and pay it forward wherever possible. That's really the goal of HARP, right? To help create this virtual space, and hopefully in the near future, more physical, space interactions, where we're able to have more of these dialogues and share our stories, and help one another in shaping how our respective communities really move forward in context of eradicating harassment and assault, and quite honestly, every form of abuse that happens to exist. I know it doesn't happen overnight, but what would I say? Every long journey starts with one step. So that's all we got to do. Put one foot in front of the other. Yeah. That's all I ask of us. And so, man, if you can, support the work. If you can't, please don't do stuff. Don't, like, whatever that work is, right? Whether it's being anti-racist, anti-misogyny, anti-bias of any kind. If you can't support the work, please leave space, create space for those who want to be intentional about it. Create space for them to do it, and so that they can do it more efficiently, right? That's it. And if you cannot be at the forefront, support from, wherever you are, support those who are doing the work, so that the work may go forward. And that's pretty much it, family. I just wanted to touch base with y'all and just share that with y'all today. And so again, if you like the work that HARP is doing out here in the community and in the virtual space, do connect with us. Share our platforms with the next person. We're on Facebook, IG, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as on the platform. Our social media handles are at HARPNOWORG. That's at harpnow.org. The website is www.harpnow.org, and it's as shown right there. And I hope that we will connect on future Let's Harp About It sessions and share with the next person. And I guess I will catch you at the next Let's Harp About It. Look out for the broadcasts and yeah, connect with us. And yeah. Talk soon, family. Ciao. Bye.